Good day, everyone. How are you now? Here we go again for the continuation of our lesson last time. So, if you still remember, we have discussed last time the characteristics of the quantitative research. Now we are going to continue and we will discuss the strengths, weaknesses, and kinds of quantitative research. Let me start with the strengths of quantitative research. Quantitative research design is the most reliable and valid way of concluding results, giving way to a new hypothesis or to disproving it. So, sabi, ang quantitative research is the most reliable. No? Yung result ng quantitative research is mas kapani-paniwala. So that is the first strength of quantitative research. Number two, because of a bigger number of the sample of a population, the results or generalization are more reliable and valid. So bakit nasabi na mas reliable at mas valid ang result ng quantitative research? Simply because of the bigger number of the sample. Mas madaming kinuhang sample, so mas reliable at mas valid ang nagiging result ng quantitative research. So, quantitative experiments filter out external factors. If properly designed, and so the results gained can be seen as real and unbiased. So, sa quantitative experiments, nasasala yung mga external factors at naiiwasan yung pagiging bias ng ating study. Quantitative experiments are useful for testing the results gained by a series of qualitative experiments, leading to a final answer and narrowing down of possible directions to follow. So what about the weaknesses of quantitative research? Quantitative research can be costly, difficult, and time-consuming. Difficult because most researchers are non-mathematicians. So, dahil hindi mathematician, medyo hirap sa numbers. So, kinakailangan natin ng assistance ng mga uh, statistician, ng mga magagaling sa numbers. And of course, kung hihingi natin ang assistance ng ibang tao, so kinakailangan natin magbigay ng kaukulang bayad doon sa nagbibigay ng assistance sa atin. So kaya sinasabi na quantitative research can be costly. Medyo magastos. Quantitative studies require extensive statistical treatment, requiring stringent standards and more so with confirmation of results. Sinabi nating stringent, mas strict yung ating standard sa quantitative studies. So when ambiguities in some findings surface, retesting and refinement of the design call for another investment in time and resources to polish the results. No? So, pag sinabi nating ambiguities, baka yung mga nagbabasa o yung nag-evaluate ng ating research ay mayroong iba't ibang interpretation doon sa at result ng ating study. So, we have to refine, no, the design ng ating study. So, that is additional cost, no? Kasi medyo magre-revise tayo doon sa ating sa ating study. Number 3 na kahinaan ng ating quantitative research is quantitative methods also tend to turn out only prove or unproven results. Yun lang yung focus natin. I-prove natin or pasinungalingan natin. No? Leaving little room for uncertainty or gray areas. Kapag hindi tayo sigurado doon sa ibang findings, so isasuggest na lang natin na further studies should be conducted, no? Para mas malinawan yung mga gray areas na hindi nalinaw ng ating study. For the social sciences, education, anthropology, and psychology, human nature is a lot more complex than just a simple yes or no response. So, syempre kapag ang involved ay human being, medyo mahirap siyang gawa ng study because hindi lang siya simpleng yes or no ang pwedeng maging sagot doon sa ating mga tanong, no? Let's say yung mga emotion ng tao, so mahirap siyang sagutin ng yes or no. Pag sinabi naman natin kinds of quantitative research design, it refers to the overall strategy that you choose in order to integrate the different components of the study in a coherent and logical way, thereby ensuring you will effectively address the research problem. Furthermore, a research design constitutes the blueprint for the selection, measurement, and analysis of data. The research problem determines the research design you should use. So quantitative methods emphasize objective measurements and the statistical, mathematical, or numerical analysis of data collected through polls, questionnaires, and surveys, or by manipulating pre-existing statistical data using computational techniques. So, we have already discussed that, no? Doon sa characteristics of quantitative research. So, sabi natin doon, at inuulit natin ngayon na kapag quantitative methods, ang focus niyan, yung emphasis niyan, yung diin niyan, ay doon sa mga objective measurements, statistical, mathematical, or mga numerical analysis. At nakukuha natin yung mga data na yan sa pamamagitan ng mga polls, questionnaires, and surveys, or mga pre-existing statistical data na nakukuha natin sa mga offices o sa mga agencies na involved sa ating research. Okay, so the first design is called, or the first kind, no, is called experimental research design. Allows the researcher to control the situation. So when we say experimental research, it allows the researcher to control the situation. So dahil yan ay experimental, so may control ang researcher doon sa kung anong situation ang gusto niya doon sa research, para nang sa ganun makuha niya kung ano yung gusto niyang palabasin doon sa study. In so doing, it allows the researcher to answer the question, what causes something to occur? So this kind of research also allows the researcher to identify cause and effect relationship. So kapag experimental research design, so diyan papasok na yung cause and effect relationships between variables and to distinguish placebo effects from treatment effects. Pag sinabi nating placebo effect, so halimbawa, ito yung minsan, halimbawa, masakit ang ating ulo, no? Binigyan tayo ng ating kaibigan ng isang tabletas o ng isang tablet. At sinabi na ating friend na yun ay gamot sa headache. Then ininom natin without knowing na yung palang gamot na yun is just a simple vitamins. Then nung mainom natin, because we believe na yun ay pain reliever, so ang resulta gumaling naman yung sakit na ating ulo. So kasi minsan yun ay psychological, no? Dahil alam natin nag-take tayo ng medicine, so sumusunod yung ating katawan, minsan nakukuha natin yung ano gusto nating maging resulta, no? Although hindi siya medicine, pero parang ang alam natin ay medicine, so naalis ang ating sakit ng ulo. So yun ay katulad ng sinasabing placebo effect. Further, this research design supports the ability to limit alternative explanations and to infer direct causal relationship in the study. The approach provides the higher level of evidence for single studies. Next is the pre-experimental. Pre-experimental types of research apply to experimental designs with the least internal validity. One type of pre-experiment, the single group, pre-test post-test design measures the group 2 times before and after the intervention. Instead of comparing the pre-test with post-test within one group, the post-test of the treated group is composed with that of an untreated group. Measuring the effect as the difference between groups marks this as between subjects design. Assuming both group experience the same time-related influences, the comparison group feature should protect this design from the rival explanation that threaten the within subject design. So pag sinabi natin pre-experimental, ang example natin halimbawa ay ang example natin diyan yung mayroon dalawang grupo, no? Then binigyan siya ng pre-test, no, at post-test. Then yung isang group ay treated group, yung isa naman ay hindi, no? So kino-compare natin yung nagiging result, then pareho silang bibigyan ngayon ng post-test. So yung result ng post-test doon sa non-treated group at sa treated group, ikino-compare natin. So that is called pre-experimental types of research. Then we have two classes of experimental designs. Mayroon tayong tinatawag na pre-experimental designs at yung quasi-experimental design nga. So quasi-experimental design, the researcher can collect more data either by scheduling more observation, by finding more existing measures. Pag sinabi naman natin true experimental design, controls for both time-related and group-related traits. Two features mark true experiments, two or more differently treated groups, and random assignments to these groups. So these features require the researchers have control over the experimental treatment and the power to place subjects in groups. True experimental design employs both treated and control groups to deal with time-related rival explanation. So, ano ba yung tinatawag nating i-control group? It reflects changes other than those due to the treatment that occur during the time of the study. Such changes include effects of outside events, maturation by the subjects, changes in measures, and impact of any pretest. True experimental designs offer the highest internal validity of all the designs. Pag sinabi natin control group, so kontrolada natin yung situation na hindi siya maapektuhan ng mga outside events. So halimbawa, ang pinag-aaralan natin ay tungkol sa halaman, no? So minsan ay nakalagay siya sa isang nursery kung saan hindi nakakapasok yung mga insekto para ma-damage yung halaman, no? Kasi po pwedeng maka-apekto yun doon sa magiging result ng study kapag siya ay na-damage. So, controlled siya. Kinokontrol natin yung situation. Ang quasi-experimental design naman differs from true experimental design by the absence of random assignment of subjects to different conditions. Doon sa true experimental kasi, ginagamitan natin ng randomized design, no? Sa quasi-experimental design, wala siyang random assignment of subjects. What quasi-experiments have in common with true experiment is that some subjects receive intervention and provide data like to reflect its impact. Kapag sinabi kasi nating quasi, so ibig sabihin yan ay resembling. Thus, quasi-experimental research is research that resembles experimental research but is not true experimental research. Kaya siya tinawag na quasi-experimental design. Parang experimental design. Yun ang ibig sabihin nun. So, halimbawa, dyan sa quasi-experimental research, independent variable is manipulated. Participants are not randomly assigned to condition or orders of conditions. No? So, yung quasi-experiments are most likely to be conducted in field setting in which random assignment is difficult or impossible. No? Kapag hindi pwede yung randomized design. So, ang ginagamit natin is experimental design. Halimbawa, a researcher who wants to evaluate a method of teaching fractions to third grades. One way would be to conduct a study with a treatment group consisting of one class of third grade students and a control group consisting of another class of third grade students. No, so, doon sa sample natin, ini-evaluate natin kung paano ba yung pagtuturo daw ng fraction, no, doon sa mga grade 3. So, ang gagawin natin, yung 1/3 ng klase ay bibigyan natin ng gagawin nating treatment group. Then yung another group ay hindi sila isa subject doon sa treatment. So yung hindi tayo nagsagawa ng randomize, hindi natin pinili kung sino yung mapupunta doon sa isang group at sino doon sa kabilang group. So yan ay tinatawag natin quasi-experimental design. So may iba't ibang klase yung quasi-experimental design. Meron tayong tinatawag na non-equivalent control group design. So, it refers to the chance failure of random assignment to equalize the condition by converting a true experiment into this kind of design for purposes of analysis. Then meron tayong tinatawag na interrupted time series design. It employs multiple measures before and after the experiment intervention. It differs from the single group pre-experiment that has only one pre-test and one post-test. Users of this design assume that the time traits such as history or maturation appear as regular changes in the measures prior to the intervention. So, yan yung sa interrupted time design naman. Na. So, halimbawa, yung pag-aaralan natin ay yung productivity ng isang factory, ng mga workers sa isang factory. Na. Ang gagawin natin ay tinitingnan natin yung productivity weekly sa loob ng isang taon ng isang factory na yan, ng mga workers doon sa factory. Diyan sa interrupted time series design, so pwede nating, ang ginawa natin halimbawa ay binago natin yung working hours, no? So from 10 hours to 8 hours ng mga workers. Then nakita natin doon sa takbo ng study natin na mas nagiging productive pala yung mga workers kapag medyo iniklian yung working hours kaysa doon sa mas mahaba yung working hours. So siguro dahil medyo kapag mahaba ang working hours ay napapagod, no, yung mga workers. So dahilan na pagbaba ng kanilang productivity. No? So yung klase ng ganyang study, yan ay tinatawag nating interrupted time series design. So, non-experimental research design naman, in this kind of design, the researcher observes the phenomena as they occur naturally and no external variables are introduced. In this research design, the variables are not deliberately manipulated, nor is the setting controlled. Researchers collect data without making changes or introducing treatments. So, ganun kapag non-experimental design. No? Hinahayaan lang natin kung ano talaga yung totoong situation. Yung researcher ay hindi niya minamanipulate yung situation o yung settings. No? So, yan ay hinahayaan natin yung mangyari lang yung natural and no external variables na ini-introduce ang mga researcher. So, the descriptive research design's main purpose is to observe, describe, and document aspects of a situation as it naturally occurs and sometimes to serve as a starting point for hypothesis generation or theory development. Mayroong iba't ibang klase yan descriptive research design. Number 1, survey. A research design used when the researcher intends to provide a quantitative or numeric description of trends, attitudes, or opinions of a population by studying a sample of that population. For example, universities regularly float surveys to determine the customer satisfaction, that is the students' attitudes toward or opinions regarding student services like the canteen, clinic, security, the guidance, and counseling services, and the like. No? So, nagkakandak tayo ng survey in order to assess, no, to get the opinions of the people. So, para bang sa election, no? So, may mga survey na nilalabas. Yun ay uh, isang example, no, ng non-experimental. Kaya siya napasok siya dito sa isang type ng descriptive research, which is the survey. Then correlational. So correlational research has three types. May tatlong klase. Meron tayong tinatawag na bivariate correlational studies. Obtain scores from two variables for each subject. So nandiyan na nakalagay by. Ibig sabihin dalawa. So then use them to calculate a correlation coefficient. The term bivariate implies that the two variables are correlated. So kaya siya tinawag na bivariate correlational studies because ikino-correlate natin yung dalawang variables. Pag sinabi natin correlated, that is finding the mutual relationship or connection. So tinitingnan natin ngayon ano yung connection o yung relationship ng dalawang variables. So hindi tayo tatlo, no? Dalawang variables lang dyan pagka bivariate correlational studies. Prediction studies naman use correlation coefficient to show how one variable o yung tinatawag natin predictor variable predicts another o yung criterion variable. So halimbawa, pinag-aaralan natin yung mga graduates ng high school, na. So which high school applicant should be admitted to college? Sino kaya ang pwedeng ang ma-admit o sino kaya makakapasok sa kolehiyo? Yung bang bulakbol o yung nag-aaral ng ayos? Then we have the multiple regression prediction studies. So sa pangalan pa lang na andyan yung multiple. Suppose the high school GPA is not the sole predictor of college GPA. What might be other good predictors? All of these variables can contribute to the overall prediction in an equation that adds together the predictive power of each identified variable. So madami siyang variables dapat, no? So ano pa yung makakadagdag doon? Halimbawa, ang sa pag-admit ng college student ay tinitingnan ang average, no, ng bata. So aside from average, ano pa? Baka nagbibigay sila ng entrance exam. So yung mga yon ay hindi lang isa, hindi lang dalawa, no, na variables. Kung hindi, lahat ng variables nagko-contribute doon sa overall prediction sa ating research. Then may tinatawag tayong ex post factor research design naman. So these are non-experimental, hindi rin sila experimental, that are used to investigate causal relationship. So ang focus niya is to investigate, no, the cause of the phenomena or the relationship. They examine whether one or more pre-existing conditions could possibly have caused subsequent differences in groups of subjects. So researchers attempt to discover whether differences between groups of results in an observed difference in the independent variables. So halimbawa natin dyan, what is the effect of homeschooling on the social skills of adolescents? So ngayon, halimbawa, tayo ay modular distance learning. yung bang situation natin ay may effect doon sa social skills ng mga ninyo na mga kabataan. Hindi niyo nakakanasan na magkaroon ng socialization with your classmates. So, what is the effect? Ano yung magiging effect nun sa inyo ng ng uh, modular study o modular distance learning na ito? No? O kaya naman, meron din tayong tinatawag na comparative design. Involves comparing and contrasting two or more samples of study subjects on one or more variables. So, kino-compare natin yung mga variables. Often at single point of time. Specifically, this design is used to compare two distinct groups on the basis of selected attributes such as knowledge, level, perception, and attitudes, physical or psychological symptoms. So, halimbawa natin, a comparative study on the health problems among rural and urban older people from this district Misyana, Gujarat. So, isang study yan na uh, example ng comparative study design. So, kino-compare dyan, ano ba yung mga problema sa kalusugan ng mga nasa liblib na lugar at sa mga nasa syudad. No? So, sa atin, sa inyong situation po, pwede rin natin mag-conduct ng isang comparative study about the performance of the learners na sa mga rural schools at sa compare with the urban schools. Ano ba yung difference? Sino ba mas madalas ang absent? Sino ba ang mas mataas ang grade? Sino ba ang mas maraming natututunan? Kamusta naman yung mga technology doon sa mga school na nasa liblib at doon sa mga nasa syudad? So, yung pagko-compare na yon, that is a comparative design study. Then meron tayong evaluative research na seeks to assess or judge in some way, providing information about something other than might be gleaned in mere observation or investigation of relationship. For example, where a test of children in school is used to assess the effectiveness of teaching or the employment of a curriculum. So, yun ang example. Yun bang mga test, yung result ng test ay pwede natin gamitin pang-assess doon sa galing sa pagtuturo ng mga teacher. No? O kaya naman yung result ng mga formative test ninyo sa bawat modules na gaano ba ka-effective itong mga SLM, itong mga self-learning modules na tinatanggap nyo. Madali ba siya? Nauunawaan ba siya? Naiintindihan ba siya? At yan bang mga tanong na yan ay pwedeng masagot ng mga result ng inyong formative test ay yung mga activities na nakalagay sa SLM? Siguro pagka mataas ang result ng mga activities diyan sa self-learning modules na tinatanggap ninyo, nangangahulugan na naiintindihan ninyo ang module. Pero pagka mababa, ibig sabihin, hindi nyo gaanong naiintindihan yung module. At magagamit yan ng mga teachers na para nang sa ganun, ma-improve o mas magawan ng intervention yung situation na yan. Kaya hindi tayo dapat nangungopya ng sagot ng mga magagaling nating kaklase. Kinakailangan maging tapat tayo doon sa ating pagsagot na ating mga activities. Kung ano yung alam natin yun na ating isasagot. Para nang sa ganun ay malaman ng teacher saan siya papasok ng intervention. So, yun ay nakikita sa mga evaluative research na yan. So, evaluation research is conducted to elicit useful feedback from a variety of respondents from various fields to aid in decision making or policy formulation. There are various types of evaluation depending on the purpose of the study. Formative and summative evaluation types are most commonly used in research. So, yung formative, yan yung mga test na sinasagutan ninyo after nung mabasa ang modules. Yung summative, yan yung ibinibigay sa inyo na after ng ilang mga modules o after ng pwede siyang monthly or twice a week, twice a month rather. So, yun ay mga summative. For formative evaluation is used to determine the quality of implementation of a project, the efficiency and effectiveness of a program assessment or of organizational processes like. So that is all about the lesson, no? About strengths, weaknesses, and kinds of quantitative research. So sa susunod na lesson, medyo mas marami tayong matututunan about quantitative research. So, thank you, goodbye, and keep safe.